Facial piercings. We're going to talk about all those piercings that are done on the head or face that aren't ear piercings, and they aren't in your mouth. They don't go into your mouth. I'm going to talk about anatomy and placement. So kind of give you an idea of maybe what we look for when we're getting ready to pierce it and connect some of those kind of weird names with where they're at. Coming up next on New to Piercing, episode number 7. For those who are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you're finding them useful and helpful, but you may not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing studio located right here inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo in Des Moines, Iowa. So the piercings we're going to talk about today are piercings that go on the face. Basically everything that doesn't go into the mouth. So I'd like to introduce my latest prop. It's a face, kind of. I haven't named them yet. If you'd like to make some comments and try to name the person, I don't know how often I'll be using them. It came as a female, but I don't know. Could go either way. Anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through where these piercings are placed on the body, in angle, and etc., and talk a little bit about the placement or the anatomy that we're looking for. So we have the handy Sharpie. I need to get a pointer, I think, but I'll probably be done with these by the time I get around to it. We're going to start with the eyebrow. Eyebrow's done up here on the face. It's done in the brow, generally out to the side right at the corner of the eye. When placing it, what we look for is how much movement is going on when they make facial expressions. Also, we will pinch the area and kind of feel for that fatty tissue that should be underneath there, and if they have enough of it to easily do the piercing or if it's going to be a problem. So the angle would be dictated by the angle of the brow. Now, when it comes to doing piercings in this area, I generally advise against it, partly because there's a lot of nerves in this area on some people. The other problem is that part of your eyebrow moves a lot more. The more movement you have, the more likely this piercing is going to reject. They can be done. People have healed them out, but I generally advise to start more off to the side in this area than go cur in here. Next on the list is the nostril. Nostrils go right here. They are pierced through the nostril. With anatomy, basically this one pretty much everybody has the anatomy for. When picking out whether or not we're going to do it or not, generally as far as placement, I talk to the person wearing it or going to be wearing it and ask them exactly what type of jewelry they plan on wearing in that piercing in the future. And that is important because the higher you are up on the nostril, the larger the diameter of the ring may need to be. So if you want a really small ring and you don't want a huge one, you generally want to talk to your piercer about placement when you're getting a nostril piercing. Now, that said, I don't suggest piercing initially with rings. It should be pierced with a stud, and that stud should be in there for roughly about 6 months to a year for the piercing to heal in season enough to the point where dun, 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 you can put the ring in and not have problems. So now we're going to talk about stacked piercings. Stacked piercings are piercings that are done one below, one above on either side of the nostril. Not much that you're going to be looking for anatomy-wise, other than if there's enough room to safely do those piercings, have them separated enough where they look good. As far as the angle, most people will go kind of perpendicular so that it matches the bridge area of the nose, that kind of angle the nose takes, so it looks more natural and normal. Some people will go against that. Play with the markings, see what works best for your face. Some look better, some don't. Matching nostrils. That is nostril piercings that are done on both sides, usually with studs. Anatomy-wise, not really looking for a lot. Placement-wise, it's important that when you are marking it or getting it marked, that you look downward like this and line these up in this direction before lining them up in this direction. If they just want to line them up in this direction, the problem is that most people will see you sitting down and etc., and they will look off if one's over here and one's over there. So it's very important that it matches this way and it matches this way. One of the things that I think most people in piercing struggle with when they're starting out is that three-dimensional part of piercing, which is you kind of need to look at your angles from all directions to get an idea of what the angle is. This way, and that way. Make sense? Now that moves us on to the Mantis. Mantis are on the front, usually done in a pair, right at the tip of the nose, going outward at the angle of that nose. Some noses these look better on than others, mainly because some people have kind of that flat nose where putting it in there makes them point in the same direction. Otherwise, they just kind of they point to the side. It really depends on your nose and what's going to work best. When we're looking at this, generally we just want enough room that we can safely secure those piercings in that area and not have issues. And also they need to be even in matching. You don't want one that's up and one that's down. You want them so they match. High nostril piercings. High nostril piercings are done further up on the nostril, usually done in pairs. What we look for anatomy-wise and placement is that thicker cartilage ending. We want to go roughly about 1/8 of an inch or so below that in through. The angle needs to be very important. These can be kind of a bit of a pain, mainly because usually one nostril is more flat. There's less room than the other side, and that's that deviation we all kind of have where our nose kind of curves a little bit. This can be uncomfortable during the initial having that longer post in there to allow for swelling, and these should only be done with flat back Labret studs. Don't do these with nostril screws and L-bends. It just doesn't work very well. What you want to look for, once again, is you want to make sure that they line up this way or this way. They line up in this direction, and they also line up in this direction. These are kind of a little bit easier to get to the matching point, mainly because there's not as much space to work with. You're not dealing with that length of the nose, so they're pretty easy to kind of get right on. They're prone to problems and everything else, and I've done a whole video on matching nostrils and high nostrils. I would advise you to watch those before you get them done initially. A lot of these alternative, like the matching nostrils, and the ones that I'm going through now, like Mantis and high nostrils, I really advise getting other piercings before you get that done. It's not really something you want to get right out of the gate. They can be a little bit more complicated to heal. And then we have septum. Septum is done perpendicular. I'm going to pick pick their nose right through here and straight out horizontally. Done with circular jewelry. It's one of the few piercings we still do with circular jewelry. When we're looking for anatomy, what we're looking for is whether or not there's enough room for the jewelry between the two kind of large plates or thick plates of cartilage. We refer to it as a sweet spot. If you pinch down on your nose like this, you'll feel it in there. There's kind of a separation of tissue, and there's a hollow area in between it, or feels hollow. That's where we want to do it. The problem with septum piercings is everybody's pretty much is deviated just a tad bit. When I mean deviated, instead of this being a perfectly straight line, it's a little bit this way or a little bit this way. So we pierce it generally to try to make it look straight, not so much that it is exactly straight. And adjusting or pulling on the jewelry during the final healing phase, a couple weeks, will kind of straighten it back up. And depending on the jewelry you wear, they can look perfectly straight. Now I'm going to cover one that I do not do, and I do not do this piercing for a lot of different reasons. Primarily, when this piercing first became popular back in the mid-90s, I saw a load of terrible versions of this piercing. I saw people that saw migration and rejection on them. I saw crooked ones. I saw ones that were half this way and half that way, and just decided it was just not something I wanted to dedicate any of my time to or do to anybody. So I've always just refused to do them. And that's the bridge of the nose. That's right in this area right here. Now, anatomy is very important with this. You need to have that kind of fatty tissue right there that they can put it through. This should only be done with a straight barbell post. Never done with curved barbells or rings. When looking at it and looking at the placement, you do want to look at it at different angles, make different expressions, and kind of figure out how it's going to fit there. Also, it's good to make different when we're talking about anatomy, often doing the stretching of the, kind of surprise, happy, surprise, kind of giving an idea of how much that tissue stretches out, because that'll affect rejection too. Really, I don't know how to say this in any other way than probably not your first piercing you want to get. You want to find somebody and get confident with the piercer's skills and expertise before you get this one done. It's not something you just kind of anybody can do. It's something that somebody really has to have the experience in. Now I'm going to talk about some piercings that are extreme, high risk, and maybe temporary piercings. Now, the piercings I've talked about before, all of those, you could have them for the rest of your life if you want to, if you leave the jewelry in and you have a tolerance for that piercing. Many of the piercings I'm going to talk about now are either really, really high experience level, expertise type piercings and very rare, or they're piercings that are prone to rejection or migration over a period of time, maybe 6, 7, 10 years. Varies greatly from person to person, but you should understand that going in. You definitely want to find a piercer that knows exactly what they're doing. So we're going to start off first off with a surface-to-surface piercing. It's a horizontal eyebrow piercing. It's done in this area, and it's instead of being done through the tissue, it's done across it with a surface bar. The next one is the third eye, which is done kind of on this nub right up in here, done with a surface bar or a single point dermal. These can reject if they're done with just standard type jewelry, and if you don't have kind of that bulge or area to do it under, your body will pretty much just push it out. Surface trachus piercings. Now, those are done right where the trachus is, which is on the edge of the ear. It's that nub in the front, and it's done in this area right approximately here. It is done vertically with a surface-to-surface bar. It should not be done with a curved barbell or anything else, and they are prone to rejection. Next one is the anti-eyebrow or crow's foot. It's done in this fatty tissue that you have around the bottom of your eye, usually done at an angle. The crow's feet. I'll get it right somewhere. Generally talks more about up in here, but for the most part, they're done in this kind of fatty cheek tissue. They should be done with a surface barbell once again, and they reject. If not done with those, and even with the surface barbells, they can reject. Now, this is an extreme piercing. It's called a Nost Ring, and it is basically a combination of 3 piercings. It is a nostril to the septum to the nostril, straight through. This one is a difficult piercing because you're trying to keep 3 piercings in one position. Just like any industrial style piercing where you got orbital or orbit, where you've got multiple piercings being held together in one piece of jewelry, it really ups the game as far as healing it out. They need to be dead on and straight, and oftentimes, because that alignment doesn't exist, they don't look like they're even. Rhino. Rhinos are done through the tip of the nose with a curved barbell, right up in here vertically. So done like this, straight up and down, straight up and down. Usually done with a curved barbell. With this, we just want to make sure you have enough bulbous fatty tissue. I've done this one in the past. It's had mixed results. The biggest problem with them is sometimes they will kind of adjust a little bit in migration. You really definitely need to make sure that you look at this one closely when they're marking it. Don't be one of those people that goes, oh yeah, whatever you think's good. Look at it, study it, because it either looks straight up and down or it doesn't look straight up and down. The next one is a Septrol. Septrol is when you stretch your septum piercing out to the point where you are able to pierce through the front of the nose directly into that septum piercing. Rare, not easy to do, definitely need to find somebody with a lot of experience, but it's one of those piercings that once it's done will probably stay with you. It's just it's an extreme piercing. It takes It takes a while to stretch the septum to the point where you can fit a needle receiving tube in there to catch the needle and put in the jewelry. So it's kind of one of those things where you got to have a stretched septum. Start with that, and we'll see how that goes. Austin is kind of like a rhino, but it's done horizontally, straight through just the cap. This part, that muscle or that fatty kind of tissue that sits on the end of your nose. Anatomy-wise, it really depends on how much room there is and if there's enough there to support it. It's done with a straight standard barbell. Placement on that, once again, just like the high nostrils, you want to look at them this way, that way, every way you possibly can, because if it doesn't go straight through, it looks kind of goofy. And the last one is a teardrop. Teardrops are done up in this area right here. They are a single-point dermal piercing, meaning that it's done with a dermal implant. These dermals have their whole little range of issues, and it's really something that you need to kind of plan ahead that you're not going to have that piercing permanently and be okay with dealing with scar tissue being that on your face. They will usually, I've seen them last 10, 15 years on some people. Other people, I've seen them last on average about 3 to 6 years. The problem is a single point piercing is, just to go through it basically, is the piercing is done with a dermal. They core out an area, then they kind of create a little pocket underneath there, and then they insert this foot in there, which is kind of a oval-shaped, elongated piece of metal with pieces cut out of it so the tissue can grow into it, and then they insert it in there, and it just has one gem or some type of end on the top. Basically, over time, what can happen is you catch it just right on a fuzzy sweater or a hat or something, and then it just gets just enough of a tear in there that your body goes, aha, I can push that completely out, and it will reject it. This varies from person to person. Like I said, I've come across people that have had them for years and never had any problem with them. Then I've had people that 3 months in, they were having issues. So understand it's temporary and that you may not have it in the long run. So do you have any of these piercings? What was your experience like, and what would you like to share with yourself before you got it done? Make a comment. And if I missed something, make a comment or I didn't make something clear. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercing skill with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in that next video.